Jayadwani from Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams.
Jai Shishi Guru Garanga Ganhavika Giridhari Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai.
Jai.
Satchinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Astautarasara Shishimat Shila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Astautarasara Shishimat Shila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Astautarasara Shishimat Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Astautarasara Shishimat Shila Bhakti Rakshak Shrida Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Astautarasara Shishimat Shila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Jagat Guru Nityalila Pravishta Om Astautarasara Shishimat Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mahabhagavat Shila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Shila Baladev Vidyabhushan Gaudi Vedantaracharya Ki Jai. Jai Rasik Siromani Shila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya Ki Jai. Jai Shila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. Jai Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada Ki Jai. Namacharya Shila Hardas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Siga Hosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gauda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Jamuna Ki Jai. Burihat Pradanga Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Nam Bhajan Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Yogamaya Purnamasi Devi Ki Jai. Antadweep, Mayapur, Simantadweep, Golden Deep, Madhudweep, Koladweep, Ritudweep, Janadweep, Motamdweep, Rutudweep, Apaka, Navadweep, Dham Ki Jai. Badravan, Bandiravan, Bailvan, Lohavan, Mahavan, Madhuvan, Talvan, Kamudvan, Bahulavan, Vrindavan, Kadyavan, Kamyavan, Vraja-mandala Ki Jai. Jai, 17th day of our Vraja-mandala Parikrama Ki. 18th. Okay. Srila Gurudev Centennial Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Oh, Dandavat Pranams Maharaj. Actually, to be honest, Hari Bol, it's both 17 and 18. It's 18th if you include the Vrat day, 17th of actually Parikrama.
Well, that's what you told me yesterday. That's why I said 18.
So, we are going to Kirtan before we open the Harikatha. Nalini, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Dhanavat. Hare Krishna, Maharaj, and to everyone. Hope you had a blissful Gordon festival yesterday. Yeah. So I'm going to sing page 30, Ashraya Koriyavando by Sri Sanatan Shisanandas. Ashraya Koriyavando Shri Guru Rana Ashaya Koriyavando Shri Guru Rana Jaha hoite mile bhai Krishna prema dhana Jaha hoite mile bhai Krishna prema dhana Jivera nishtara lagi Nanda Sutta Hari भुवने प्रकाशपना गुरु रूपधारी महिमाया गुरु कृष्ण एक कोरी जानो गुरु आज्ञारी दे सबा सत्य कोरी मानो सत्य ज्ञान गुरु वाक्य जहर विश्वास अवश्यता हर होया ब्रज भूमि वास जरा प्रति गुरुदेवा हन परसना कोनो विघ्न से नहीं हय भसाना कृष्ण रुष्ट होले गुरु रखी बारे पारे गुरु रुष्ट होले कृष्ण राखी बारे नारे गुरु माता गुरु पिता गुरु हना पाते गुरु माता गुरु पिता गुरु हना पाते गुरु बिना संसारे नहीं आगाती गुरु बिना संसारे नहीं आगाती गुरु के मनुष्य ज्ञान न करो कखनो गुरु निंदा कभू करने न करो श्रवण गुरु निंदु केरा मुख कभू न हेरिबे जथा होया गुरु निंदा तथा न जाइबे गुरु विक्रया जदि देखह कखना गुरु विक्रया जदि देखह कखना तथापि अवज्ञा नहीं करो कदाचाना तथापि अवज्ञा नहीं करो कदाचाना गुरु पर पद में रहे जरा निष्ठ भक्ति गुरु पर पद में रहे जरा निष्ठ भक्ति जगत तारिते से धरे महाशक्ति जगत तारिते से धरे महाशक्ति हेनो गुरु पर पद्मा करो वंदना हेनो गुरु पर पद्मा करो वंदना जहाँ होते गुचे भाई सकल जंत्राना जहाँ होते गुचे भाई सकल जंत्राना गुरु पर पद्मा नित्य जे करे वंदना गुरु पर पद्मा नित्य जे करे वंदना शिरे धुरी वंदी आमी ताहर चराना शिरे धुरी वंदी आमी ताहर चराना श्री गुरु चरण पद्मा हृदय कोरी आशा श्री गुरु चरण पद्मा हृदय कोरी आशा श्री गुरु वंदन करे सनातन दास श्री गुरु वंदन करे सनातन दास Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Sanatana Das, Jaya Sanatana Das, Sanatana Das, Jaya Sanatana Das, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari
Hari Hari Bol.
Oh, sorry, I just muted. I was just on mute. Hari Bol, everybody. Dandavat Pranams. Nalini Didi, thank you so much for that beautiful kirtan. I think I was on mute when I was speaking previously. And we look forward to you. You're coming back at the end, right?
Yeah, I think tonight, 8 o'clock, I think so.
Today, the end of this,
Yeah.
today. Yeah, right.
Today, 8 o'clock, yes?
No, today at, whenever this program finishes at 12.
Ah, right. Okay, I will message you on the WhatsApp. I may not be available.
Okay,
so.
no problem.
Okay.
Haribo, Vachove, Vanchikapatubhischa, Kripasinduevacha, Patitanam Pavanabhyo, Vaishnavabhyo, Namamaha, Om Gyan Tiramandasya, Gyanjana Slakaya, Chaksho Militam Yena, Tashmai Shi Guru Namaha. Trinada Pisa Nichana, Tarora Pisa Hishtana, Amanina Manarina, Kitne Sadahari, Tatenu Kampam Susamik Shamano, Bunjanavat Makritam Vipikam, Hitvak Tapavividam, Namaste, Chivita Yomukti Sadaya Bak, Vachvegam, Manashkorvigam, Chivigam, Rapastuvigam, Etam Vigam Yovisehedira, Sarvapimam Pritvim Sasasyat. Anya Balasta Sunyam Gyan Kamaliana Vritam Anukaranya Krishna Shilanam Bhakti Uttama Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadata Shivasdi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram, Hari Hari. My Dandavat Pranams to my beloved, most merciful, Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat Pranams to Srila Prabhupada, to the entire Parampara, to our Rupanuga line, to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. And my Dandavat Pranams to all of the beautiful devotees assembled this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are in the world, on this Zoom program on Facebook and YouTube. And my Dandavat Pranams to all of you who are going to be watching the recordings in the future. So Hari Bol, this is Kartik 2021, Gurudev's centennial Kartik. Gurudev is instrumental in immersing us deeply into the moods of Braj, and he is doing so having established the Parikrama was obviously established before Srila Gurudev, but he ran and managed that Parikrama, led that Parikrama for decades, brought so many Westerners, brought the whole world to the Parikrama, to both Navadvip and to Kartik. And this is really us honoring Kartik, is thickening our relationship with him and with the whole of the Parampara, bringing us all closer, deeper into the moods of Vraj, and closer to that day when we can be in service to our Swamini Radharani. So today is, I was saying last night, it's joyous to say it's day 18, but also with a little bit of lamentation, because every day that passes means we're nearer the final day of Kartik. And I for one will be bereft on the day after Kartik, because having these 2 programs a day is really filling my heart with, I'm waking up with the Leela in my heart, bringing it very much alive due to our beautiful speakers every day, to whom we're very grateful for their immense Harikatha. But before I hand over to our speaker today, I'm going to play a beautiful video. So just bear with me as I set it up. It's a few minutes, prepared by our beloved Janardhan Prabhu.
Namami Swaram Sachidanandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Vraja-mandalam Jasoda Bhiyo Lukha Ladhavamanam Jasoda Bhiyo Lukha Ladhavamanam Paramrishamatyam Tato Drupta Gopya
Wow, that was such a beautiful video, wasn't it? So beautiful. there was such a lovely picture of, I've asked you to unmute, Maharaj, there's a beautiful picture of Laguna there, who was the gentleman who donated the whole Badger property to Gurudev and the Sangha. And what struck me about that video was just capturing those beautiful close-ups on the faces of everybody in a world of such deception and hypocrisy, where so much activity is for self-aggrandizement and getting richer or getting more famous. It's so beautiful. You could see on the faces of everybody just this natural, it's all coming from Gurudev's effulgence, this natural beaming authenticity and joy. Absolutely amazing, beautiful. So on this day 18, I'm going to hand over, and with a big thank you to Shripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj, who's been always so enthusiastic and so pioneering in his Harikatha and his love of Kartik Parikrama. And today he's going to be speaking on verse 2 of the Damodarastakam. I'm armed with the book, Maharaj, so very excited. I hand over to you. Thank you so much. Haribol.
Thank you, Yashoda. Thank you. Om Ganata Mirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tarare Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Prabhajantam Anapetyam Apetya Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Juhava Putreti Tam Mayatayo Tarabo Venidustam Sarabhutam Pridim Munim Anato Shmi. Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptas Chakarmadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Paradram Tatom Mamanasti Kachena Kapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of our most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astottara Shrimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astottara Shrimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And I'm offering my Dandavat pranams millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Varigya, and to all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you today. Vancha kalpa tarupyascha kripa sindhavivicha patitanam pavnivyo Vaishnave vino namaha. So today we're going to hear about the second verse. So just as a point, why do we chant this Damodarastakam every single day during the month of Kartik? Because it epitomizes very significantly the nature of Vrindavan itself. Vrindavan is just flowing with pastimes of nectar. It's flowing with descriptions of the relationships between the Brijbasis and Krishna, the exceptional relationships between the Brijbasis and Krishna. Nowhere else in existence has the sweetness and speciality of these relationships. As we reach this 10th canto, in fact, because that's where we go with the Damodarastakam. This is where it's described in the 9th chapter of the 10th canto. It's a gradual accumulation coming through the other 9 previous cantos. We're coming through pastimes in Dwarka. In the first canto, for example, we're introduced to all kinds of different illustrious personalities: Vyasadeva, Narad, Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhisthira, Vidura. All these beautiful characters are introduced to us in the first canto. And in the second canto, Shukadev Goswami, he's introducing himself with his beautiful prayers of devotion, especially in the 4th chapter of the 2nd canto. Many verses in glorification of Krishna. but gradually the whole atmosphere of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it begins to increase in intensity. We come into the third canto with Vidura and Maitreya, and then the fourth canto, still Vidura and Maitreya, and so many pastimes with Lord Shiva, Daksha, with Prithu Maharaj, Dhruva, etc. And we're being introduced to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This platform has to be absolutely solid, just like in all of our own personal histories. We all had the illustrious Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and he quite categorically erected this platform to educate us in the position of Sri Krishna, that he is, first of all, God is a person. He had to illuminate that for us. And then he established the greatness, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. And all the way through, with all his tireless lectures over 10, 11, 12 years practically. So this was the solid, rock solid platform where we could build absolute respect and honor for the Supreme Lord to make us eligible to enter into this 10th canto. And coming into this 10th canto, if we don't have that background, if we don't have that appreciation utterly and strongly with Siddhantic clarity, then when we hear about the familiar pastimes between Krishna and Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba and the Sakas, and of course, principally the gopis, then we won't really be able to relish them sufficiently that we're able to do with the understanding of Krishna as being that supreme personality. So we remember Srila Gurudev would say many times, your Prabhupada has told you that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and I've come to tell you that he's not. So like this, we're appreciating where does this pastime fall that our dear Satyabrat Muni or Satyabrat Rishi is narrating. This is an eternal pastime. We can see in this Damodarastakam book on page, it's X11, page 12 at the beginning in the preface, Sanatana Goswami, he's stating this prayer is Nitya Siddha, which means eternally perfect. It is manifested through Satyabrat Muni and is capable of attracting Sri Damodar Krishna. This prayer will attract Krishna. And we are in the right atmosphere to absorb ourselves in this remarkable prayer, being in Vrindavan itself during the very month of Kartik. And also, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he says, Sri Damodarastakam is eternal. Therefore, we should study it, sing it out loud, and discuss it, not just during the month of Kartik, but every day throughout Chaturmasya. It is so important that it's worth reading every month, indeed every day of the year. If this Damodarastakam is glorified, it is in a sublimely pure way, Sri Damodar will become pleased. It is with this intention that with great effort we have compiled this book. This is Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj speaking. So the other day we went through the first verse, and at the very end of the first verse, I didn't complete it in the reading because I left the last portion to you to absorb yourself in when Srila Gurudev begins to describe what is pure bhakti. And he was quoting Anya Vilasita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, this verse that he made it his hallmark at every single festival. We have to know what is pure bhakti to appreciate this remarkable exchange of the deepest devotion that Mother Yashoda is expressing towards her darling Lala Krishna. So in the very last paragraph of the first chapter, Gurudev is saying the practicing sadhak the practicing devotee, should also desire to perform activities that will melt Sri Krishna's heart. Sri Krishna will not be able to resist him for very long. He will accept that devotee with his whole heart and immerse him in his own sublime service. So just like Yashodanandan Prabhu was just saying, that this prayer for service is topmost and foremost in our minds, how to attract the Supreme Lord. It's saying in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Leela chapter 4, verse 17, Aishwarya Janate Sabha Jagat Mishrita, Aishwarya Sitila Prema Nahi More Krita. All the universe is filled with knowledge of my majesty, but love weakened by that sense of majesty doesn't control me. This is very important to appreciate. This is like the foundation as we roll through these verses, that this is dramatically fully in the Madhurya realm. We have left this Aishwarya behind. But how can we, who are such fallen conditioned souls, have the ability to appreciate this? Only by the mercy of our Guru Varga. It is only their mercy. And today, as we are traveling through Vrindavan, it is also, don't doubt it for a second, by the mercy of the Dham itself, by the mercy of the dust of the Dham, which holds all of these pastimes within it. When Krishna enacts a pastime, because he's the Supreme Lord, it doesn't disappear. The atmosphere of that, it like makes an indelible impression on the atmosphere of that place. It cannot be eradicated. It's there all the time. These are eternal pastimes residing there or here in Vrindavan in this atmosphere. And in the following verse, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj, he quotes, if one regards me as the Supreme Lord and himself as subservient, I do not become subservient to his love, nor can it control me. So this is a very important appreciation, because what we're going to witness in these verses is that the love of Mother Yashoda had the ability to ultimately not only control Krishna, but actually bind him against his will practically. Finally, he relented, but certainly it was not something that he wanted to undergo in the moment. So to appreciate all of this aspect, we come into the second verse now today. Rudantam muhu netra yugmam rejantam karamboja yugmena shatanka netram muhu shvasakam patri rehanka kanta stita graiva damodaram bhakti padam. Seeing the stick in his mother's hand and fearful of being beaten, he is weeping incessantly and rubbing his eyes again and again with his two lotus-like hands. His eyes are extremely restless and filled with fear. He takes heavy breaths again and again that cause the pearls and other ornaments around his neck, which are marked by three graceful curving lines, to tremble. O Damodar, you have been bound by your mother's Vatsalya Bhakti. I offer obeisances unto that Damodar. So how is the heart of Satyabrat Muni? Always remember that Srila Gurudev has taught us any bhajan, any astakam, we always have to be appreciating from the heart, from where it has arisen from. This astakam has arisen from the inspired heart of Satyabrat Rishi. So now I'm going to read the Digdarshani Tika Bhavanuvad of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. The excellence of Krishna's extraordinary Leela is depicted in this important verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 9, 11. Kritaga shantam prudantam akikshine kshantam anjan mustiniswa panina udvik swamalam paya vivaksanam haste gritve bishyate avagurat. I'm not so good at pronouncing the Sanskrit. Mother Yashoda watched as her naughty child cried bitterly and rubbed his eyes with both his hands. The black ointment from around his eyes mixed with his tears and spread everywhere. Seeing her son with his eyes full of fear at the sight of the stick she was brandishing, Yashoda took him by the hand and began to gently reproach him in order to instill fear in him. This is a mother's love we're hearing. We understand in this conditioned world that the mother's love is considered the ultimate, practically, of all affection. It's unconditional. The mother will rise in the morning very early, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, just to feed the child, etc. She doesn't become annoyed if the child vomits on her, etc. She makes great sacrifices for her child, but now we're seeing in the spiritual realm. So we have the mother's love in the material realm, which is considered extraordinary, but to consider this mother's love in the spiritual realm, this is really special. In the stanza beginning with Rudantam, Sri Satyabrat Muni fully captured the meaning of this Bhagavatam verse. In following with the second half of the previous stanza, so in the previous verse, the last 2 lines, it went into the description of Mother Yashoda chasing Krishna and finally catching him from behind. Yasoda biolokala davanmanam paramristam atyanto tato durtya gopa. That Mother Yashoda, she captures Krishna from behind. This is what Gurudev is, what Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj is referring to. He continues to establish his worshipful Lord's supremacy through descriptions of his unique pastimes. Appreciating the same pastime that is described in the above verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, he spoke the present stanza thus. When he saw his mother holding a stick, he became apprehensive, fearing that she would surely beat him. Now he is hoping that by showing her how afraid he is, he can avoid being punished. So Rudantam, he cries bitterly, Ankarambojam yugmena, netra yogmam mrijantam. He rubs his eyes again and again with both his lotus-like hands. That he just keeps rubbing his eyes with both his hands is in keeping with the natural behavior of a child. You see why we have to appreciate that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead simultaneously before we can enter this pastime. If we hadn't got that fund of knowledge, that foundation, we would be thinking this is some baby story. We wouldn't be able to properly honor it and get the juice that will nourish our devotion to Krishna from it. This is the special characteristic of his Balya Lila, and it is one explanation of Karamboja Yugmena Netra Yugmam Rijantam. But this phrase also indicates 2 alternative meanings. The first of these is that there are actual tears that instantly came to his eyes due to his fear. In order to make these tears fall from his eyes, he continuously rubs them with both his hands. The second alternative meaning is that continuous streams of tears are already flowing from his eyes, so he rubs his eyes with both his hands to wipe away the tears. So the acharyas, they have focused on every nuance of this astakam, every part of it with great detail to give us entrance into the full mood of this. The meaning of satanka netram is that if even his eyes are expressing that he is afraid of being punished, his mind must be overwhelmed with fear. This is Krishna, who can tackle and face any mighty demon, any warrior, etc. And he's afraid, he's showing fear. Otherwise, it may be taken to mean he is casting his glance in all directions because he is greatly agitated by fear. His attempt to avoid being beaten by his mother is another of his unique confidential pastimes. And moreover, muhu swasena, because of his continuous crying and constant heavy sobs, Kantastita Grivam, the pearl necklace and other ornaments around his neck, which are marked with tri rehanka, 3 graceful lines like the ringed grooves on a conch, are also trembling. Kampat. Sri Damodar, whose belly becomes bound by ropes, appeared thus. By this description, Sri Satyabrat Muni has captured the meaning of another verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Tanatva mamjam havyaktam martya lingam adhoksajam gopikolu damna banda babanda prakritam yata. Just as an ordinary mother in this world may bind her mischievous son, so Mother Yashoda, simply considering Sri Krishna to be her son, tied him to the grinding mortar with a rope, as if he were an ordinary child. This is Krishna's desire. Krishna desires to become an ordinary child. He desires to taste the Vatsalya Prem. He desires to taste the Sakya Prem. He desires to taste all of the Prem of Braj. This is why he steals the butter. The butter is their Prem. He goes to the different doors and steals their butter. He's only hungry for this Prem. The above verse mentions that the rope was knotted both at his belly and at the grinding mortar. And there's a footnote here that Mother Yashoda first tied one end of the rope around a heavy grinding mortar, which we saw when we went to Gokul, and then began to tie the other end around her child's belly in order to keep him securely bound. Thus the sage has revealed Sri Krishna's unique supremacy by describing his bhakta vasyata, vishesh, his special quality by which he allows his devotees to control him. This is so beautiful to consider, this being controlled by love. I read those 2 verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that if this love is laced with Aishwarya, it doesn't control me. It's like the love of the queens of Dwarka is called Samanjasaha. It doesn't control Krishna. But the love of the gopis, their rati is called Samartha, and it has the ability to control Krishna. This is the immensity of that love and affection. Sri Satyabrat Muni says, Bhakti Badam. The meaning is Bhaktyaiva Badam. Sri Krishna is only bound by bhakti and nothing else. In other words, it was not the strength of all the ropes that was able to bind him. Rather, he submitted to being bound, on one hand, because of the power of Sri Yashoda's bhakti for him in the form of motherly affection, and on the other hand, because of his own special quality of willingly being controlled by his bhaktas, like his mother, in the form of his bhakti for her. So this is bringing out, as we said in the beginning, the essence of love and affection. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj, he quotes many verses describing the nature of love. He says, love is the principle, the center, which is the only fulfillment of all existence. The very gist of existence is there. It can't be ignored or challenged by any other forms or aspects of substantial existence. It is unchangeable and absolute. He says attraction is the most fundamental element everywhere. All else can be eliminated and forgotten if we come in touch with attraction and love. So this is love directly being churned in this remarkable pastime by Krishna's expertise with the support of Yogamaya and his Shaktis. Krishna is not doing anything. All his Shaktis are manifesting the fulfillment of his desires, and his desire is to taste the excellence of the Brijvasi's love. Mother Yashoda, we know, previously performed so many austerities, etc., it's described, to achieve Krishna as her son. So this is a remarkable birth, a remarkable personality, not birth. She's Nitya Siddha, so remarkable personality we're talking about here. That is why even when Mother Yashoda tied all the ropes she had gathered together, she still failed to bind him. There always remained an inexplicable gap of 2 fingers. This is described again in Srimad Bhagavatam. Tad dharma badyamanayasya svarabhakasya kritagasa dva angulanam bhuttena sandadade nrichapcha gopika. When Mother Yashoda tried to bind her mischievous child, the rope was 2 fingers too short, so she added another rope to it. Yadyasit tadapi nyunam tenyan api sadyadyate tad api dvagulam nyunam yadyad adata bandhanam. However, that also was 2 fingers too short. In this way, each and every time she tied on another rope, it was always 2 fingers too short. These verses have to be quoted just to give us the authenticity of this pastime, because it's achintya. How can the rope be too short each time by exactly the same amount as 2 fingers? So therefore, the acharyas, they have to quote directly from the Shastra to substantiate this phenomena. Evam svagreha damani yashoda sanditya papi. Although she had tied together all the ropes in her home, Mother Yashoda could not bind Krishna. Seeing this, the gopis started giggling. Utterly perplexed, she also began to laugh. The other reason that his belly became bound with rope, Damadaratva, is that bhakti badam. He is completely enchanted exclusively by the bhakti of his devotees. This meaning actually leads to the previous one, that he becomes bound because of his bhaktya vashyata, his willingness to be controlled by his devotees. In regard to this, Srimad Bhagavatam further states, Swamatu svinina gatraya vishrasta kahara sraja dristva parisramanam Krishna kripasyet swa bandhane. She had become exhausted by tying so many ropes together, and her body had become covered with perspiration. The flowers woven into her hair had fallen from her loosened braid and had scattered here and there. Seeing his mother's fatigue and feeling compassion, little Krishna then allowed his mother to bind him. It's interesting that there are so many meanings that the acharyas weave into this pastime simultaneously. Evam sandrashita yanga harina bhakta vashyata svavashenapi krishnena yasyadam sevaram vashe. Sri Maharaj Parikshit, this entire universe, along with the powerful demigods who control it, is completely under the control of the supremely independent personality of Godhead Sri Hari. Yet he has allowed himself to be bound in order to show that he is willingly controlled by his devotees. This is the essence of this whole pastime, that he's willingly to be controlled by the love of his devotees. Nemam vrincho nabhavo nastri api anga shamshraya pasadam lebayi gopi yatat prapa vimuktidat. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, who bestows salvation upon all, never showed Lord Brahma, Mahesh, Shivji, or even his eternal consort Lakshmi Devi, who is half of his body, the kindness he showed this Gopi Yashoda. Nayam sukapa bhagavan dehinam gopika shuta jnaninam chatma putanam yato bhakta matam iha. Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the son of a gopi, Gopika Sutta, is not at all easy to attain for the Astanga yogis, who identify themselves with the body and who perform severe austerities, nor is he easy to attain for self-realized jnanis, who are absorbed in all-pervading non-dual knowledge. But these loving associates who are absorbed in serving him, simply considering to be their darling son of a gopi, have easily attained him. In other words, although the ascetics and impersonalists undergo great trouble, instead of attaining the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, they merely attain an incomplete or partial expansion of him. So this is to be appreciated. These verses have conveyed the aforementioned reason for being bound. So there's a footnote just elaborating. The reason is that Sri Krishna is bound due to his quality of Bhakta Vashyata. Later in Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Krishna declares, Devashir me priyatmano yad imo dananat majo tat tata sadya shishyami yad gatin tan mahatmana. Devarshi Narad is my dear devotee. Therefore, even though these two brothers, the sons of the most wealthy demigod, Kuvera, had no devotion for me, still I must fulfill Sri Narad's words by appearing directly before them and granting them my devotional service. So this is, in a sense, he's being bound by Narad, by his the devotion of dear Narad. He's being bound to interact with these two personalities who were not even devoted originally. Actually, they were very offensive to Narad. The deep meaning of these statements spoken by by Sri Krishna is that he enacted the pastime of delivering the two sons of Kuvera in the form of the twin Arjun trees, because he was pleased by Sri Narad's devotion to him. Indeed, he enacts all his pastimes because he is pleased with the bhakti of his devotees. This is yet another important meaning of bhakti badam. He is bound by bhakti. So that's the end of the commentary by Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, the Digdarshani Tika of the second verse. So now the next part will be Srila Gurudev's commentary. You have a question? Any question?
I had a statement and a question, Margie. We were talking about the word ontological before, and I thought it was very beautiful when I made the note, basically paraphrasing what you were saying, that love is the irreducible reality. So this is the ontological foundation of all existence.
Yes, very beautiful. Very beautiful.
So that's the context within which you use a word like ontological. You also use a word, was it one of Krishna's qualities is bhakta, something, I couldn't pick it up. Vashyata. So is it, just repeat that.
Vashyata, Vasayata.
And it's bhakti vas or bhakta.
Bhakta Vashyata, and it has a slash above the S, so it's a sh. Vashyata and a long A. Vashyata.
And that means what?
That means he's bound by the bhakti. He submits to that bhakti of his devotion, of his devotee. We see in the progression from sadhan bhakti to bhav bhakti to prema bhakti. There's a beautiful verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says, Kleshagni Shubhada. This is sadhan bhakti. Shubhada. Moksha Lukhata Krit. This is when liberation becomes looked on with disdain. And finally, Sandra Ananda Visheshatma Sri Krishna Akashani Chasa. That Sri Krishna Akashani Chasa. Krishna is going to be controlled by this prema. This is prema bhakti. So this is our focus. The sadhaks must be very fluent in appreciating where are we stepping, where are the stepping stones. There is our sadhan bhakti, our performance of sadhan bhakti, but what is the mood with which we are performing our sadhan bhakti? If we're holding various material desires for either bhukti or mukti, for material pleasures or for liberation, then this is going to be described like a witch, pischachi. This witch will still be there in the heart. How can Krishna enter? Bhukti, mukti, prihas yavat, pischachi, vartate. That this witch of these two desires, so that's our sadhan, has to purify these desires, and then the taste of bhav bhakti can manifest. And we understand through the teachings of Rupa Goswami exactly the nature of this bhav bhakti and how it can manifest by our dedicated service and practice to Sri. We can't manifest it by ourselves. This is bestowed upon us by the mercy of the Lord. It doesn't matter how many austerities or even how many rounds you chant, in a sense. If you're not chanting with focus and attention and a mood to enter into these types of pastimes, then what are you wanting to do? To get liberation. We all come to this path, and that's the topmost desire in all of our minds. That's why we actually come to this path. But that is to be purified, hopefully, by the immense power of the Hare Krishna mantra itself. The mantra itself has the potency to purify that incredible anartha of desiring freedom from the suffering of the material world. Who wouldn't want to be freed from the suffering of this material world? But we have to understand that there is no suffering outside of my own creation of it. We're suffering because due to the intensity of my material desires. As soon as I desire material pleasure, then because I'm spirit soul, how can I possibly not suffer because of that? So this is the equation, so to speak, that the jiva finds himself in this world. It's not that Maya externally is creating this predicament or this suffering condition for the jiva. It's my attraction. So therefore, the key is with me. Don't, debilitate yourself thinking that, oh, I can't actually control this situation. It's beyond my control. Just like Dhritarashtra in Bhagavad Gita. He was constantly saying, it's not in my control. It's all the control of providence, but it is in our control. We have a choice. Always we have the choice whether to be attracted to that Mayic object or to be firm and strong and to turn away from that object. So it's always, the key is with us.
So Maharaj, in today's verse 2, it's very much stressed, and you've been stressing, on the one hand, it's important to fully appreciate that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to go further into these leelas. On the other hand, we're not wanting an Aishwarya mood. So in Gurudev's key verse that he was always propagating, Anyablasta Sunyam Gyan Kamadena Vritam, where it says, we're not interested in Gyan, we're not interested in yoga, mystic cities, we're not interested in liberation. Where does it say exactly that we're not interested in Vaikuntha in that verse?
Because that indicates Vaikuntha. When we're actually wanting Gyan, we're talking about like Uddhav, for example, being a Gyani Bhakta. Bhishma Dev was considered a Gyani Bhakta. This Gyan is knowledge of Krishna's Aishwarya. So absence of that Gyan, then Madhurya Ras will actually be open for us to experience.
Okay. Because I always thought that verse when it said Gyan was referring to those Gyanis that are just sort of intellectualizing everything, that lower level of Gyan.
Gyan is described there very clearly by Rupa Goswami himself. 3 types of Gyan. There's Tat Padartha Gyan, knowledge of Krishna, but knowledge of Krishna in what form? So that also has to be appreciated, the different aspects of Krishna. Right. He's Sarva Shaktiman, he's Rasaraj, he's Swayam Bhagavan, he's the controller of Maya. So all of these aspects of Krishna, simultaneously, to actually go beyond that, only by real attraction. This is what Yashoda, doing the Vraja-mandala Parikrama, can actually give us. When you're wandering through Braj, you may momentarily just forget that, you know, you're a very important person. You may actually just come into a more humble state of consciousness. When you, for example, just see the local Brijabasis, when you see the beauty and sweetness of the cows that we were talking about yesterday, when you just see the beauty of the trees and the beauty of all the climate and the atmosphere of Vrindavan, then we're not even on the maps, we're not even there. And we've submitted to the beauty and atmosphere of the, so in that condition, and if we're remembering this pastime of Damodar Leela, for example, then we can just seamlessly flow into this. And all we need is an impression, a smear, even for a millionth of a second, to show us the absolute reality of this world. That's all it takes, just a single moment glimpse. And Gurudev is knowing this. That's why he's bringing us here. He knows that 99.9% of the time, we're all just going to be stumbling around in a conditioned state. But there'll be that fraction of a moment when the mind and the clouds will clear. And like lightning, Srila Gurudev will be there, putting this smear on the heart of the real sweetness and speciality. And then, in time, with diligent practice, that smear, that impression, that sanskar will obliterate basically our previous sanskars in this birth. We're carrying so many, not just in this birth, but in lifetimes of births, you know? So it's these powerful, we can say mystical impressions that someone of Gurudev's caliber is able to infuse within us by, in so many ways. It may just be a look, it may be a kirtan, it may be his words he's saying, it can be absolutely anything. It's not.
Although I don't want to go into it now because it'll take up too much time, but one's own personal experience can support everything you've just said. Totally. You can actually feel it. Yeah.
Yes.
One other comment I'd like to make just before we move on is what you've been saying really arose in my heart. Instead of it being an intellectual consideration, a real feeling consideration, is that there are three things going on between Mother Yashoda and Krishna, just as there are between any devotee and Krishna. There's the beloved, the lover, the beloved, and then there's Bhakti Dev herself. And that's very beautiful, because that's kind of, you haven't actually said it explicitly, but you've been intimating that all the time. It's like there's that active principle who is the personality herself, who is the prey.
Bhakti Devi.
Yeah,
yes.
Really beautiful.
Yes, yes. So this whole pastime is supposed to bring out, and it does bring out, as we get deeper more into it, the absolute excellence of Mother Yashoda's prem and bhakti for Krishna. I mean, what Mother Yashoda goes through during this pastime is unbelievable. When the two trees crash down and she thinks that Krishna might have been killed, and then she just becomes frozen for the whole day, and Krishna won't speak to her for the rest of the day. Neither will Nanda Baba speak to her. And then the trauma and the drama, trauma and drama at the end of this pastime just melts any heart. And all the Brijbasis are melted by that. So we're understanding that even though we're reading these pages at the beginning. So, okay, now, if any more questions from anybody else also, please.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Zoom chat, but can't see any. And does anyone have any questions for Maharaj before we move on? That void of Zoom silence.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm looking at all the muted. It's tough, you know. It's like I really love giving live classes where you can
love questions. Maharaj, you love questions.
You can look at people, because the questions open things out.
Yes.
You know, when someone's, and it has to be a question from the person. Don't ask, oh, someone else said something about something. That doesn't fly at all.
We have a question. We have a question.
Okay.
Sorry, Dasi, Dandavats, Haribol. Please put your camera on if you can. And oh, I need to unmute you. 1 second. We got a question, so we wanna attend to that. I've got to find.
Actually, if you don't ask me questions, I'm going to start asking you questions. How's that?
That's a great idea, Maharaj. You mean just randomly call people out?
Yes, I'll just throw it out to Lalita there. I can see with Udara. Throw her a question.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find Sobarini. It's quite, hang on, let me change my view. Apologies, 1 second.
Okay, Haribol.
Oh, here you go. Didi,
Yes.
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Haribol, Dandavat Pranams, Maharaj.
Dandavat.
Dandavat, I have a question. If Mother Yashoda is eternally liberated, Nitya Siddha, why she has to do so many sacrifices to become Krishna's mother?
She's not doing sacrifices at all. She's part of the Leela that's churning the immensity of prem within Braj. But in order to do that, just like for Krishna himself, in order to do that, he has to appear very, very fearful. Krishna is really afraid. Sobina, right? That's your name, Sobina.
Sobarani.
Sobarani. Krishna is genuinely, this is the point about this particular verse. He is genuinely afraid. This bewilders Queen Kunti in the 8th chapter of the 1st canto. Because she can see that Krishna is genuinely afraid. How can he be afraid? He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he chooses to become covered by Yogamaya. He's described as being Sarva Gyan. Sarva means all, Gyan, knowing, all knowing, and he's Mugdata simultaneously. It's Achintya, but he's both. And Mother Yashoda simultaneously. She is immersed in this pastime. Mother Yashoda is only immersed in a consideration that Krishna is my darling son. That is her whole focus. Otherwise, how could love flourish fully? If there was any reservation, if it was like some sort of drama or something like that, it's not at all on that level. They are completely 1,000,000% immersed, just like Baladev Prabhu. He becomes immersed in his Sakya Ras with Krishna to such a degree where he forgets that he's omniscient and can kill Pralambasura. He thinks, I'm a cowherd boy. He completely becomes covered by that mood. Similarly, Mother Yashoda, she's completely immersed. There's no question. Of course, this is an eternal pastime. As soon as this pastime is concluded in this universe, it'll begin straight away in another universe, and again and again and again. It's unending. So from a logical, rational point of view, it cancels everything out if we try to think that it can be explained in any way. All we hope to do, as I've said a number of times, is to pray to appreciate and move in the direction of sensing and feeling what they are, what are the moods that are going on here. Do you understand?
Yes,
Is it
yes.
something?
Yeah, thank you very much.
This is how you're going to melt your heart. I mean, why are we reading these pages today? Why are we hearing this today? With the intention of melting our hearts so that we can become attracted to Krishna's Leela. This is the purpose of our coming together and serving Srila Gurudev in this way. And if Srila Gurudev chooses to melt our hearts, then he will do that. But if all we have to do is listen, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you. Very nice question.
Great.
Very good question indeed.
Actually, it's great, Maharaj. We've now got 3 more questions, which is fabulous. It's all flowing in now. So
Don't forget, we've got quite a feam more pages to run. So
well, you tell
go
me
ahead.
when to stop.
Okay, go ahead, Achyutananda.
Am I on? Hello?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
You're on.
Yes, it is also Krishna's opulence of renunciation that he gives up his Aishwarya, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I once made an example, and some Vaishnava pundits agreed. It's like, because in Goloka, Purnamasi and Prema are in charge. So it's like a big man, and they say, "It's your birthday. What do you want for your birthday?" And he says, "You know what I like. Surprise me." So everything comes as though he's a little baby or a boy, and he's complete. He can't lift up Nanda Baba's shoes; they're too heavy. after Putana is killed, she's many yojanas long. Her body, when it manifests as a demon, crushes Nanda Baba's orchards, and Krishna's on top, and he's up on top of Putana, who he just killed, and says, "Get me down! I can't get down." And the cowherd boys put ladders.
Kamsa's orchard. Kamsa's orchard, not Nanda Baba's orchard.
Oh, she smashes his. Oh, okay.
Oh yes,
Okay.
yes, definitely. Yeah, but he's a
Really
helpless
back-
baby. He's a helpless. He wants to. How can you get the high? Krishna is only wanting prem. He's only in that world of love. That world of Gokul is only flowing with prem. That's the only essence of that world. We can't understand it in this conditioned world. But in order to taste and churn it, then these pastimes are enacted with all the demons that come into Braj. All of them are churning.
So
Maharaj,
it's
sorry, 1 second.
emphatically.
Before you go on, Maharaj, can you just summarize that point, please, that's being made?
Well, Prabhu is just mentioning that Krishna wanted to renounce his Aishwarya, but in a sense, I think he's renouncing his Madhurya to engage in Aishwarya, Prabhu Achyutananda.
Ah,
I think that his heart is, of course, in Madhurya. That's where he is. But he's renouncing that Madhurya and he's going to Dwarka, not the other way
Very good.
around.
very good.
Why should he renounce Aishwarya? Aishwarya is not impressive. Aishwarya doesn't control him. He only wants love. We can think of this in regards to our own activities and so on, how much concerned are we for the welfare of our hearts over the, cleansing of our minds or etc. You understand? How can we come to this place? We are coming from the other way around, you see. That's why we sort of view it. Krishna's giving up this Aishwarya, but he had no taste for it initially.
Very good. Because my next point was that it's emphatically established that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's on every page. And then the famous remark of Narayan Maharaj is that I'm here to tell you he's not.
Yes, and both are absolutely correct. There's no difference here. Without this platform first, in my own life, without Srila Prabhupada first, I would not be talking to you today. No question about it whatsoever. He is responsible for all of my initiating into this path of bhakti. But still, there had to be another step beyond acknowledging Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It couldn't end there. Then I would be in Dwarka. It has to end in Vrindavan. So therefore, all of that has to go at some point.
So isn't the conclusion of your conversation with Achyutananda Prabhu is that surely Krishna he's actually surrendering, he's actually showing his detachment or surrender to Aishwarya and Madhurya depending on the pastime. He's going back and forth.
Well, we were looking at it overall. I think Achyutananda and I we were seeing the entirety of it. We weren't breaking it down, but the original Krishna is, of course, Goloka Vrindavan is the highest conception. It's not Dwarka. So Goloka Vrindavan, we can say, is the original conception where the most sweet prem is flowing.
Okay, that's why he's going that way. Got it. Wonderful. Thanks, Prabhu. We're going to move over to Budara Prabhu next.
Okay. Budara loves to talk about love.
Here he is. Budara,
Okay.
Dandavats, good morning to you. Good morning, Lalita.
Dandavat. And first of all, thank you to Achyutananda Prabhu and Maharaj for that amazing little bit of nectar nugget that you just shared. That's quite a realization. I really appreciate that. I'll be as quick as possible because I know you have a lot of pages to get through.
I'm looking for you. I can't find you. I'm looking to see you.
Oh,
You're probably in the front of the Zoom now. I'll come back. Yes, go ahead, Prabhu. I'm listening carefully. I still haven't got you. Oh, yes, there you are. There you are. Got you. So
okay.
Unmute me again. Yeah, okay.
I'm conscious that you have a lot of pages to get through, so I'll try to make this as succinct as possible. In our Gita class this morning, we were talking about the need for surrender to the Lord and the dependence that is required by us in terms of achieving that surrender. And then after that, we then talked about how ultimately that brings us to a place where going from we're dependent on the Lord to the Lord is dependent on us. Right? So,
Exactly. Yes.
Right. So then the question came from one of the members in the class, do in that state of high rasic evolution, do we lose then our sense of dependence on the Lord? Because we're only
we're going to come to this very point, Budara. You're jumping into this chapter. This is exactly the point that the chapter is going to bring out. It's the two fingers. It's the two fingers.
Yeah.
It's called chaster and creeper. Both considerations need to be there. Our efforts in surrendering and our submission to Krishna's creeper.
Can I tell you what I answered? Because I want to know if I said it correctly or if I have to go back and apologize, which probably I do. But what I said was, as our love intensifies for the Lord and becomes rasik in that way, how could Mother Yasoda, for instance, not be dependent on the Lord? Right? She needs the Lord in order to. I mean, how could she live without the Lord? How could she live without her darling? Right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not good.
But she's dependent on the Lord Narayana.
No. I'm just saying that as
she's dependent on him for her love.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not as God.
Not as God. No, but
no.
Not as God. But the principle of
love.
And dependence on the Lord, that surrender to the Lord becomes fully mature when we forget that He's God, and yet that dependence is still there, because without Him, what would we be?
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good.
Okay.
It's good.
Great
it's good.
Question. Whoever asked that question, Badara, give them massive star points. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that was Lalita Hunter. Who asked?
Yes. Good.
She always asks really good questions.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Margie, thanks, Badara. If you don't mind, let's go to our final question, because let's encourage these questions, because it's quite hard to get questions from the audience.
It's just amazing that Budara Prabhu asked that question, because the exact point is going to be discovered on like 3 pages in where we're going to be speaking. Right. So I think great clarity will come from the words. Beautiful question, yeah.
So we have a question from Shamali. Shamali. I might need to unmute her. Let's see where she is. Can I see her? Shamali, where are you, my dear? Shamali. Oh, there she is. Dandavats, I'm asking you to unmute now. Thank you for your question. Please go ahead.
Dandavats, Master. Thank you, Yashoda. So yesterday when we were doing the Govardhan Anukut and Puja and celebration, the Mahotsava, listening to Gurudev's lectures on yours, it became really clear that any other desire was going to become a hindrance. So the whole idea is to become, but you just said it before, that heart melting quality where we have no other desire. So that's my question, which you really already answered. But that when we're talking about becoming Krishna is dependent on us, then we have to be the provider. And it's like, how do you become
That's
that
it.
innocent?
That's it. That's it, Shamali. That's beautiful. That's very beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking to please Krishna. I'm only looking for his, I want to nourish Krishna. I'm not asking Krishna for something. All other faiths in the world, they all put their hands out as Krishna is like an order supplier. But the dynamic of this devotional practice is that we are asking, how can we please Krishna? What can I offer to Krishna? I mean, that's when real affection, because the love in this world is so perverted. It's always with me at the center. How am I going to get some juice out of this relationship for me? We can't think any other way. But real love, which I described earlier, which in this material world is described like a mother's love. That's somewhat unconditional. It's not completely, because the mother loves the child because it's her child. She won't get up at 3 o'clock in the morning for every other child in the street. So therefore, there's some conditioning in there, but still it's an example of selfless love. So this selfless love is the place that we are focusing to procure, you can say, or to appreciate, or to come to that beautiful place that you just described. Yes, how can I please? Can I give him some mutton? Can I give him some butter? Can I give him some roti? You will today when you make your offering. Will your heart be melting when you put the offering on the plate? Will you be thinking, oh, Krishna? I mean, it's true that Krishna will accept your offering if you offer it with that mood. We don't just say these prayers and rituals because, it's part of a what do you call it? A dogma that we follow. Yes, we put the bread on the altar and say, Krishna, please accept it. And then, no, we should be trying to focus. And every single time we make the offering, it should be different. It's never the same as it was the last time. Our minds and consciousnesses have always evolved. If we're practicing, even a little bit practicing, you're personally practicing a lot. We've reached the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're flying here, we've become qualified to actually enter this realm. But yes, that giving to Krishna, it's something that is not in our nature, not our material nature. It's our material nature has to be purified completely. It's very few that are able just to give totally selflessly.
Marj, in that reply, you just made a very, very interesting distinction, because language, I think, is so important in terms of evoking mood. You switch between the idea of pleasing Krishna to the idea of nourishing him. Because if I say I want to please Krishna, you can please a king, but you wouldn't say I want to nourish the king. So in the word please, there's a hint of Aishwarya, or should I say, the practitioner like me may be inhibited through the word please by thinking, oh, how do I please Guru? How do I please Krishna? Some Aishwarya can slip in there. But the word nourish, that's a whole different mood. When you said, how can I nourish Krishna? That just shifted the whole dynamic.
It really comes down to empathy, in a sense, learning how to empathize and how to tune in. First of all, we can practice in this world, how to really consider someone's needs and wants, etc. I mean, devotees should be nurturing these types of qualities. The devotee doesn't want to see any suffering anywhere in the world. And as soon as we sense that a particular person is having difficulty, we naturally want to relieve them of that difficulty. And then we take this whole understanding further. And how can we really satisfy the Lord? Like the gopis. The gopis only are thinking how to satisfy Krishna's prem, or Krishna's calm, it's described. It's described as Krishna's calm. How can they satisfy Krishna's calm? That's how they describe it.
Beautiful.
Yashoda,
Thank you so much, Shamali. Thank you.
Thank you, Yashoda. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dandavats Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Dandavats Shamali, what a beautiful question. I knew you'd have a beautiful question today. I just took one look at your face and I thought, she's got a really good question. Very nice. Thank you, Shamali. Yashoda, we're going to have a 60-second commercial. I just
Yeah, no
have
problem.
to.
I've got an announcement to make. So while you're doing your phone, recharging your phone, Maharaj has got to pop off for 60 seconds while he recharges. Just a quick advertising break. The clocks in the United States, except for Arizona and Hawaii, and also I think an Indian tribe, but I don't think that's very relevant here. But in the United States, every state other than Hawaii and Arizona is changing their clocks backwards. So if you are on that side of the pond, on that side of the Atlantic, we will be going back to, instead of 4 hours difference in, say, New York, Chitananda, you'll be 5 hours behind. If you're on Central Time in Houston, for example, you'll be 6 hours behind instead of 5. If you're on Mountain Time, you'll be 7 hours behind instead of 6 hours. And if you are in California or anywhere on the West Coast, on Pacific Time, you will now be 8 hours behind, not 7 hours. So I hope that is all super clear. If you are in Hawaii or Arizona, you will be on the same time difference. Hari Bol, Maharaj is back. So I shall mute myself and unmute Maharaj. Just unmute yourself, Maharaj. Yeah, great.
Got it. I don't know whether the audio will be as clear as it was on the iPhone. I'm now using an Android. Okay, no problem.
Perfect,
Okay,
Maharaj,
so
perfect.
let's go into Srila Gurudev's opening up of this second verse now. Digdarshini Vritti by Srila Gurudev. On this day, Sri Krishna, the personality who causes the three worlds to tremble merely by the movement of his eyebrows, has become overwhelmed by fear of his mother. Gurudev is immediately bringing in these differences. Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is suddenly showing fear to his mother. How can these two dynamics exist at the same time? It's astonishing. Seeing the tiny stick in her hand and trembling, he stammers, "Mother, look, do not hit me. I did not break the pot of yogurt." Mother Yashoda is slightly full-figured. As she was running, her braid came undone, and the flowers woven in her hair began falling out. It was as if the flowers were saying, "Mother, you are not alone. We are also with you." Those devotees who make their hearts spotless by endlessly drinking the nectar of devotion to Sri Krishna, imbued with extreme attachment and laced with renunciation of the material world, attain a state of meditating on Sri Krishna deep within their immaculate hearts, which are fully saturated by loving service. That was the third paragraph on page 40. I think that paragraph itself could be taken out and made a poster of. It's absolutely beautiful, the way it's being constructed there. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Narayan sometimes appears in the meditations of Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, and the four Kumaras, the original sages. Still, even in their deepest meditation, they cannot capture him in the form of Rajendranandan Sri Krishna. Yet, Mother Yashoda actually bound him, the complete embodiment of all nectarian humors of transcendental love, unimaginably powerful warriors, despite their greatest valor, pose no threat to Krishna. But Mother Yashoda not only captured him, she brandished a small stick in her hand and threatened him. "Shall I beat you now?" As Kanaya rubbed his tear-filled eyes and tried to hide behind his mother, you can imagine little baby trying to hide behind his mother, who's trying to capture him. She cried out, "Mother, do not hit me." He did not look directly at her. He only looked fearfully at the stick in her hand. When we hear these types of descriptions, we know that the personality from whose heart these descriptions are coming is right there in the pastime. There's no doubt. "You monkey friend," she exclaimed, "chore, thief." To this, Sri Krishna replied, "Mother, there is no chore in my dynasty. There is only a chore in your dynasty, only a thief in mother's dynasty." "Oh, really?" she retorted. "If you did not steal the butter, then who was feeding the monkeys?" Kanaya replied, "He who made the monkeys was feeding them." How cheeky is Krishna? Is that so? She said. Tell me frankly, who broke this pot? Look, mother, when you ran to save the milk, your large ankle belts hit the pot and it broke. Then how did you get butter all over your face? She asked. Mother, the monkeys were eating the butter, so I was trying to scare them away. As they were running, they smeared butter all over my mouth. Krishna lies fluently, just absolutely fluently, not a breath of hesitation. It just flows out. Hearing this exchange, all the gopis began to laugh. I am not about to set you free so easily, Mother Yashoda said. I am going to tie you up. Mother Yashoda's mood was grave. If I don't chastise him, she thought, he will become quite a troublemaker. With this in mind, she decided to bind him. Although Sri Krishna started to cry, she did not let him go. She thought to herself, I will keep him tied up for a while, and when I have finished churning the yogurt, I will untie him and feed him butter and breast milk to calm him down again. Mother Yashoda considered, Krishna is Kala, a cunning and mischievous thief, and his accomplice, Ulukal, this grinding mortar. Both deserve to be punished. I will tie them together in such a way that Krishna cannot untie himself from the mortar. Thinking thus, she proceeded to bind him. Tadharma Padyamanasya Sarabakasya Kritagasa Dan Gulan Barabutena Sadade Nyache Gopika. Again, this is the verse that was described previously. When Mother Yashoda tried to bind her mischievous child, the rope was 2 fingers too short, so she tied it to another rope. She had removed the silk ribbon from her braid in order to bind Krishna with it. Other than the gold chain around his waist, Krishna was quite naked. Although his tiny waist measured no more than 12 fingers, the ribbon could not be made to bind him. It was 2 fingers too short. Mother Yashoda asked her friend for another rope, but that rope was also too short. Time and again, she gathered and added more rope, but it was always too short and only 2 fingers too short, not more, not less. There is an esoteric meaning in this. 1 finger represents the sadhak's endeavors, and the other finger represents the Lord's mercy. Sri Bhagavan becomes controlled by his devotee only when both of these elements are present together. So this was answering, I think, directly what Budara Prabhu was just referencing. I'm surrendering to Krishna, and simultaneously, I want to offer Krishna some nourishment. Simultaneously, both are going on together. So now this is a very interesting explanation that Gurudev takes the time and trouble to explain. The Ramanuja Sampradaya is divided into 2 according to whether they emphasize the Vedic scriptures or the Tamil scriptures. The former are known as Vadakalai and the latter as Tenakalai. They have distinct opinions regarding the means of ultimate attainment. The view Vadakalai Ramanujas is based on grace arising from a cause. Their stance is compared to Markata Nyaya, the analogy of the baby monkey clinging to his mother for protection. So the baby monkey has to make the effort to hold on to the mother monkey. It's his effort alone that will keep him alive. When the mother monkey moves about with her baby, she makes no effort to hold him. Instead, the baby clings onto her as she leaps from tree to tree. If he falls, his mother will never accept him back again. So there's this chemistry. So this is a beautiful, clear example. Conversely, the view of Tenakalai Ramanujas is based on causeless grace. Their stance is compared to Madhurya Nyaya, the analogy of the cat carrying the kitten in her mouth. The mother cat picks up her kitten with her teeth and carries him about. The kitten does not make any effort and goes wherever she takes him. Thus, the followers of Vadakalai school strive for the grace of Bhagavan by their own efforts. Conversely, the followers of Tenakalai school rely solely on faith in the causeless grace of Bhagavan, considering their own endeavors ineffective. That's kind of like Dhritarashtra again in Bhagavad Gita. The Gaudiya Vaishnava school asserts that both views are necessary. The following analogy is given to illustrate this stance. A person who has fallen into a well will cry, "Please help me, pull me out." Then from above, someone may lower a rope into the well and say, "I am lowering down a rope. Catch hold of it and I will pull you out." However, if the person in the well does not catch hold of the rope, he will not be freed. From his end, he must hold to the rope, and from above, he must be pulled out. Very simple. This conundrum, we can say, of these two aspects, Chesta and Kripa. Mother Yashoda's effort and Krishna's mercy. She was making so much effort. The flowers in her hair were falling out. She was perspiring. She was collecting all the ropes. She had taken a vow that I am going to bind my son regardless. Even if I have to stay here for days, I'm going to bind my son. She had that type of nishtha. This will be described later on. But Krishna, he also had similar nishtha, that he was not going to be bound, because Krishna has two other agendas. He wants to steal some more butter today, and he wants to play with his cowherd boyfriends. So he doesn't want to take the trouble of being bound. In this example, the person in the well cries out for help and later firmly catches hold of the rope. These endeavors are the means of his deliverance. In other words, they are his sadhan. From above, the person who is trying to pull him out is bestowing causeless mercy. For someone helplessly fallen in the well of material existence, Sri Bhagavan's causeless mercy descends, just like this rope. And by performing sadhan, one takes hold of that rope and achieves service to his lotus feet. So both, very clear. There's no gray matter here. Mother Yashoda did not give up in her attempt to bind Krishna. She kept trying. All the gopis began to clap their hands and say, "Oh, mother, the Creator has not written on this boy's forehead that he will be bound. So how can you tie him up?" Mother Yashoda felt ashamed. This is so embarrassing, she thought. I have not been able to bind the child that has come from my own womb. Taking shelter of Bhagavan, Sri Narayan, she silently began to pray, "Oh Narayan, please help me. If I cannot bind this boy today, it will be so shameful for me. Protect my honor." Her face had become reddish like the rising sun, and drops of perspiration had begun to roll down her face like pearls. Srimad Bhagavatam describes as follows: Swamatu svinina gatreya vishrasta kabara shraja dristva parishramanam Krishna kripasyat swa bandhane. Sri Krishna saw that his mother's body had become drenched with perspiration. The garlands woven into her hair braid had fallen out, and she had become utterly exhausted. Seeing his mother's fatigue, little Sri Krishna compassionately allowed himself to be bound. Sadhaks should perform sadhan bhajan with the same unwavering determination and hard endeavor, but always knowing that the result is going to depend on Krishna, never thinking that the result will depend on their sadhan. Our only duty is to perform our sadhan. What other duties do we have to perform? Then Sri Krishna's heart will melt, and he will be compelled to bestow his sublime devotional service upon them. Indeed, when Krishna saw his mother's firm resolve, his heart melted, and his topmost potency, his mercy of totality of all his powers combined, then manifested as his bhakta vatsalyata. So this is what this pastime is about, this bhakta vatsalyata, his affection for his devotees. At that very moment, his Aishwarya Shakti, the potency of supreme majesty, disappeared, and he allowed himself to be bound. I was just thinking in regards to our beloved Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He would demonstrate all types of phenomenal Aishwarya visions to the devotees. Sometimes it's described he would look like 1,000,000 suns when he came out of the airport, and the devotees would just be flattened by this remarkable show of Aishwarya. And at other times, he would just joke in such an affectionate local manner. He was completely mixing the two together. There had to be that respect established. Aishwarya, it creates that platform, especially for the conditioned souls where we've wandered away and lived perhaps degraded, disrespectful lives. So respect is a very important quality that needs to be achieved. And this is accessible for the devotees today. We can work on this directly, making respectful dealings in our various associations with the different devotees, always being honorable to the devotees, not committing offenses to the devotees, appreciating that Krishna loves all his devotees, regardless of whatever you think. You might think from your proud state that you know better and this devotee is doing something wrong. But my Gurudev has often explained, Krishna will take care of that. That's not our business. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj says exactly the same thing. He says, mind your own business. It's not our business, anybody's difficulties that they're going through. Who is not going through a difficulty? We're all having to face various challenges in different, degrees of our lives, etc. No one's free from that until we reach that completely liberated platform. Mother Yashoda made an intense endeavor with unflinching resolve. Following her example, sadhaks should try to melt Sri Krishna's heart, and by practicing devotional service that is imbued with characteristics like sincere, loving emotions, bhav, great enthusiasm and anxiousness, utkanta, and a deep sense of closeness and relationship, sambandha, a feeling of possessiveness, mamata, and intense affection for him, priti. They should compel him to engage them in loving service to him. Service is the symptom of love. Always remember that. Service, it demonstrates our affection, just like the gopis. They ran to the forest to please Krishna. Krishna was calling, you must come. They didn't call Krishna. Krishna called them and they ran to serve him, to please him. So this is like I was just saying to Shamali. This is when the whole perversion of this conditioned state becomes clear to us. That when I keep putting myself at the center, grossly or subtly, it goes right across the board here. So this is something for us to practice and work on. It's not out of our reach. We wouldn't be hearing it today if it was out of our reach. Somehow we would have avoided the class, or we would have avoided reading this somehow or other, but we all are qualified because we've all come here today. We're all in Vrindavan listening to this Dambanda Leela. Continuing, regarding the previously mentioned verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with Sva Matu, an important point must be considered. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentary on this verse, Krishna's waist measures only 12 fingers, and the length of the rope continually increases. Why then could his mother still not bind him? Krishna was thinking, my important daily activities of stealing butter and playing with my friends will be stopped, so my mother should not tie me up. Immediately, his Aishwarya Shakti, which makes the impossible possible, manifested herself within him and proceeded to serve him. So that's interesting for Achyutananda Prabhu, that the Aishwarya Shakti is in service to Krishna. It's not that Krishna is going to renounce his Aishwarya. The Aishwarya is in service to him. Consequently, although the size of his waist remained the same, and although the rope was made so long, his mother could not bind him. The Brajagopis, who were witnessing this pastime along with Mother Yashoda, could not understand its mystery. Why was the rope 2 fingers too short? There was a time, just to make a humorous point to you, I asked Gurudev after he'd given one of his classes like this, I was saying, well, what happened to all the rope that must have been piled up? Because Gurudev one time was saying that that she gets every single rope out of the whole village. And I asked this question, and Gurudev just rolled his eyes and looked at me and walked away. It was like wanting to have rationality and logic into a incredible drama. Why would I even think and consider that? Why wasn't I thinking something more sweet and special? But anyway, I just share that with you, because sometimes, as coming from our Western lifestyle, we have this rationality that seems to always just wanting to jump in and wanting to have everything rationalized for ourselves. Shri Krishna could not be bound by ordinary rope, because all arrangements for his pastimes are made exclusively by his own intrinsic potency, Yogamaya. That's very interesting. Yogamaya has created the rope. She's created the ulutkal. She's created everything. She's created the whole pastime. She created the milk to boil over at that specific time, just to churn it. Everything is so timely to stay abreast of the various emotions that are going to be rising. Furthermore, there is no outside or inside of Sri Krishna, nor is there any beginning or end to him. He exists eternally in his Swarup, both before the creation of the phenomenal universes and after their total destruction. We see the first verse. What is it? Eva Sam, Eva Krishna, this first Chatushloki, that before there was anything. Eva Sam, Eva Krishna Gre. Was anything, there was only Krishna. In the interim, he pervades all the universes, residing within each of their atoms. Yet all the while he remains Akila Rasamrita Murti, the original form of condensed, transcendent nectar in its totality. In fact, Raso Vaisa, he is nectar. We were discussing the other day about Krishna being Lavanamrita. Lavanamrita means the origin of beauty. The very origin, Lavan Amrita. Thus, Sri Krishna, being forever beyond the purview of mundane sense perception, is thoroughly inconceivable, yet Mother Yashoda simply regards him as her son. So this is the dynamic that we're adjusting to, the inconceivability, and yet at the same time, there is a pastime that we are conceiving of a mother binding her son. So only by chanting Hare Krishna, only by the mercy of Guru, are we able to remain sane, so to speak, by accepting this. Otherwise, it would just be, off our horizon. Thinking of him in that way, she behaves with him in such a natural and seemingly ordinary way that her relationship with him may even appear to be like a relationship from this world. But because of that simple, loving relationship, she was actually able to bind Krishna. So this is very important, this simple, natural relationship between a mother and a son. Krishna can never be bound by someone who has not abandoned all separate interests for selfish enjoyment. This is what we said, mukti bhukti spriha yavat, these witches of Maya that remain, which are in opposition with the tendency to please him. If I want mukti or I want moksha, I want bhukti, this is in opposition. This is going to be, you know, a stumbling block. He will only become bound by someone who cultivates uttam bhakti, which is the inherent function of one's perfected constitutional identity. That's interesting. Don't forget that line. It's the inherent function of the constitutional identity. Sometimes there's lengthy discussions on these points. And which is uninhibited by fruitive acts, mystic yoga, and dry knowledge. Therefore, Sri Bhagavan's power of compassion and mercy, the topmost among all his potencies, only becomes manifest by the performance of such uttam bhakti. In its presence, his Aishwarya Shakti, the power by which he displays his supreme majesty, becomes powerless. When Sri Krishna manifests his mercy potency, he is controlled of his own accord. We doing for time okay, Yashoda?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any need to worry about finishing, huh? Today. It's up to you, because if you try and finish, it's going to go on a long time.
No.
Yeah.
I'm reading to satisfy the devotees,
No,
and
it's
if the
beautiful.
devotees want to interrupt me at any point with any comment or an impression that they've, or realization that they've had, or question, then I hope that you will.
So we've got another 9 minutes, Marsh.
I've just got a quote here from Jaiva Dharma, which is interesting. Bhakti Ras is the function of Krishna Bhakti when it becomes absolutely pure. So this is what we're actually discussing here. We're discussing the absolute purity of Krishna Bhakti, which is the embodiment of Bhakti Ras. This is all about the 10th canto, is where Bhakti Ras is going to manifest. Sorry, Yashoda, you said there was a question?
No question. Just saying we've got 8 minutes.
Okay. In their previous lives, Devaki and Vasudeva performed extremely severe penances, but even they could not find Krishna. And there's a footnote here. Although Shri Krishna awarded them their desired benediction by becoming their son, he performed all his sweet childhood pastimes in Vraja, away from their vision. When he returned to them in his later pastimes, his identity as the Supreme Lord was revealed. So this is to be considered. What then can be said of others who try to bind him? He may willingly come under the control of a sadhak when he sees them eagerly performing loving service to him with great persistence, but he cannot be attracted by austerities alone. He is only attracted by sincere love. So that might be very difficult for us. You know, we may be able to walk the miles with our various japa, brats, and our performance of various parikramas and so on. But is the heart actually becoming attracted in love? I know in my own personal life, I have no genuine affection. And my small son, who's just, you know, quite frivolous, when he was with Gurudev would always light up. I mean, he was just like 12, 13 years old, and they would just joke around. My son was able to speak Hindi fluently, so they would just joke about anything. And Gurudev would always be in a very light, jovial mood. But when he came to see me, it would be, you know, what's he got to say? And it was completely different. And he was like, oh, Maharaj, I'm chanting so much. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Ah, Gurudev's not interested, really. Where is the heart? I can remember one time I was knocking myself out trying to do so many things to please Gurudev. And then one time I took part in a drama, and I was acting as Ramanuja in Badger. And Gurudev thought it was so good. It was nothing. It was just a very small little part, but he kept on praising it even the next day and the day after. he was mentioning, oh, you were so good in that drama. And I thought, what about, I've done this, this, and this, nothing. How is the master teacher? How is the master teacher able to imbibe in us and purify these age-old Sanskrars that by my accomplishments, my achievements, don't I deserve something now? Don't I deserve some acclaim, some pat on the back, some kudos? This is how the material dynamic works, right from birth. We're trained in school. You know, be competitive, be better than the next man. That's our life.
That's
But
such a
Srila
great
Gurudev,
story, Raj. That's such a great
yeah,
story.
so many like that. I was really, you know, a hard nut to break. I haven't broken yet, so.
About that chair story, you may not be comfortable sharing it. I don't know, but that's.
Oh, that was so good.
Share
That one
that.
time, when my son had when my son had a bad back, that was like a
No, it's
mystical thing.
when Gurudev was asking you to move this chair around.
Oh no.
No, okay. Maybe not.
I was going to say a different one just to demonstrate the nature of my Gurudev's joviality. One time my son, he broke his leg when he was very young, so often he had his back out. And on this particular day of Parikrama, his back was killing him, you know. And we got into one place and Gurudev said, squat down like a horse. I want to sit on your back. So my son got down on all fours like a horse, and then Gurudev sat on his back and his back went crack, crack, crack. And Gopi got up and he just felt great. He just felt completely fantastic. He just ran around the whole rest of the Parikrama. So, you know, what can't Gurudev do when he just at the, you know, anything, any miracle, even changing the Aishwarya of our hearts. Because this is what this prayer, this Damodarastakam, I think has at heart, to change that aspect. Although I think many of the devotees here have already changed and they're already very much open to the sweetness and beauty of Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. But
although inherently we always were.
Yes, we always are, not were. We always are.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll just read one more paragraph and then I'm going to close, because this paragraph closes on the highest principle, which is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Without a mention of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, nothing is really complete. So here it's saying, before the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bhakti was evident within the world, but not bhakti ras. Srila Rupa Goswami fulfilled the inner desire of Sriman Mahaprabhu. Within the sacred texts he compiled, especially Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Ujjvala Nilamani, he perfectly delineated the meaning of bhakti ras, describing all of its divisions and subdivisions in full detail. Sriman Mahaprabhu has propagated bhakti ras through his most confidential associates, Sri Swarup Damodar, Sri Rai Ramananda, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, my own Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, and others. And I would certainly, no, we can't really say, Achyutananda, that Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was advocating this bhakti ras. He was definitely indicating it. He gave us nectar of devotion. He gave us everything. He gave us all the ability to come to a Rasik Vaishnava. So this is what he gave us in that sense. So actually he gave us everything. So I wanted to include Bhaktivedanta Swami in that list, but just hearing all those names, Rupa Goswami, Swarup Damodar, Raghunath Das, Sanatan Goswami, etc., this should inspire our attraction and affection to our Guru Vargya. So I'm going to close there, and I thank you all very much for your patience in listening and hearing something. We've got quite a bit more. I would appreciate it, actually, if the devotees can finish up the chapter again. There's another 6 pages of chapter 2. And if they can finish up the chapter themselves, then next time we meet, we can go straight into the 3rd chapter. And as we go into the third chapter, if any of you have any questions from these last 6 pages, you please note them down. I love the questions because always any question is going to open up an avenue that I probably have never thought of in my life. So I'm always looking to explore these truths. This is what gives personally me happiness, to explore the truths. I certainly am not in knowledge particularly, but I want to explore truths and become more appreciative of these remarkable pastimes. So Sri Damodarastakam ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhavevacha patitanam papamyo vaishnave namo. So if anyone has any question, do we have a moment or not?
Maharaj, just to quickly, before we do go to questions, we got to page, was it 45?
Yeah, the last part about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Page 46, Yashoda.
46, paragraph 2 or paragraph 3?
Where the 3 dots are in the middle of the page.
46, so everybody, because the question came up. So we got to page 46, just below the 3 dots. Awesome. Do we have any questions for Maharaj before we move over to Radhika Didi, who's going to sing Kirtan for closing the program?
Radhika came.
Radhika came, yeah, thank you. She's a lifesaver. Okay, so we're going to Radhika Didi. Do I need to unmute you? Probably. 1 second.
No one has any question?
Doesn't look like it, no.
Okay.
Okay, just bear with me. Bear with me, Radhika. Where are you, Radhika? Oh, there you are. Thank you so much, Didi, for saving the day there and coming in at short notice. Haribol, over to you. Dandavats.
You saved my day.
We saved each other. Gurudev saved us both. Haribol.
Archie, do you have a request for any bhajan?
Damodarastakam.
Okay.
I would love that so much, yes.
Shri Gurudev ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. Jai Go Premanande.
Go.
Nama Vishwara Sachidananda Rupa Lasat Kundala Gokule Brajamana Nama Vishwara Sachidananda Rupa Lasat Kundala Gokule Brajamana Yashoda Viyoluka Ladhavamana Paramrishtamatya Tatasokya Gopya Namami Swara Sachidananda Rupa Lasat Kundala Gokule Brajamana Rudanta Mohor Netra Yugmamrijanta Karamboja Yugmena Shantanka Netra Muhusvasakampa Tridekha Kakanta Sitagraiva Dama Tarambhakti Vada Namami Shvara Sachidananda Rupa Rasa Kundala Gokule Vrajamana Iti Dekh Swalilabhir Ananda Kunde Swargashamni Majanta Akhyapayanta Tadiye Sita Geshur Bhakte Jitatva Puna Prematasta Satabhiti Vande Namami Shwara Sachidananda Rupa Lasa Kundala Kokule Prajamana Varam Deva Moksha Namoksha Vadimba Nachanyam Vineha Varesadapiha Idam te vapunata Gopala Bala Sadame Manasya Rastangi Maya Namami Shwara Sachidananda Rupa Lasa Kundala Kokule Vrajamana Idam te mukha Poja Avyakta Nile Pritam Kuntaila Snigdha Raktascha Gopya Mohos Chumbitam Bimba Raktadarame Manasya Virasta Alam Lakshalabhya Namami Shwara Sachidananda Rupa Lasat Kundala Kokule Vrajamana Namadeva Damodar Ananta Vishnu Prasida Prabhu Dukha Chalabdi Magna Kripa Drishti Vrishati Dinambatano Grihane Shamamagyaha Edati Drisha Namami Shara Sachidananda Rupa Lasa Kundala Kokule Vrajamana Kuberatmaja Bada Mohutraiva Yadva Tvaya Muchita Bhakti Vajo Krito Cha Tatha Prema Bhakti Sakame Prayacha Namakshikramesti Damodareha Namami Shwara Sachidananda Rupa Lasa Kundala Kokule Vrajamana Namaste Sudhamne Puradipidane Kadyadarayata Vishwasyadane Namoradikaya Kadya Priyaye Namoradikaya Kadya Priyaye Namonantalilaya Devaya Tubhya Namami Shvaram Sachidanandarupa Lasa Kundala Kokule Brajamana Namoradikaye Kadya Priyaye Namoradikaye Kadya Priyaye Namonantalilaya Devaya Tubhya Namonantalilaya Devaya Tubhya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Damodara Radha Damodara Jai Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe Jai Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara Nitai Gaura Haribal 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 Nitai Gaura Haribal Nitai Gaura Haribal 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 Nitai Gaura Haribal Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol Shri Damodar Vrat Ki Jai Shri Urja Vrat Ki Jai Shri Kartik Vrat Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol
Namoradikaya Tvarya. I love that. I love the repeating of that line 3 times. It's so ecstatic and reminds me, brings me close to Gurudev. Thank you, Radhika, dear Radhika. That was absolutely beautiful. So before we bring the program to a close, just some boring reminders. Oh, no, before a boring reminder, tonight, please come, 6 o'clock UK time, which still means in New York Eastern time, it will still be 4 hours behind, which will be 2 o'clock. And on Central time, 1 o'clock, midday Mountain time, and 11 a.m. Pacific time. Everywhere else, the same times as we've had before. Europe will be 1 hour ahead. Tonight we've got Srimati Vasant Didi speaking and Sripad Bhaktivedanta Avanut Maharaj speaking. Maharaj will be speaking on Damodarastakam, and Vasanti will be speaking some other Leela of her choosing. I don't know what the subject is yet, but please join us. So just to remind you, from tomorrow, clocks are moving back in North America. So in North America tomorrow, you will be 5 hours behind. I'll give the actual time. You'll be 1 p.m. New York. Central time, you'll be midday. Mountain time, you'll be 11 a.m. Pacific time, you'll be 10 a.m. But Hawaii, Arizona, you'll be the same as today ongoingly. So bringing to a close day 18, part 1 of Kirtan of Kartik 2021, Srila Gurudev's centenary year. Thank you so much to all the organizers, the MCs, the beautiful kirtaneers, those helping in the background, those doing the streaming so it can all go live on Facebook and YouTube and be stored for later because we get a lot of views later. And thank you to our speakers who are just tremendous and in part one of the day, Tridandi Maharaj speaking every single day and Nami Maharaj speaking almost every single day. It's and Prakashatma also making guest appearances. It is absolutely relishable. And thank you so much to our beautiful Srila Gurudev and Parampara for even allowing us to be sharing such material, such experiences. It's really both magical and highly improbable. Only the Lord can make the highly improbable probable. The fact that we're listening to these incredible subject matters. So thank you very much. We're going to